This is the first of several very critical hearings on the current status of political and security efforts in Iraq. Today's hearing is particularly important as we rely on the Government Accountability Office to bring an objective analysis of these issues before us. I don't think it'll surprise anyone who reads the paper to learn that the government of Iraq has not met most of the benchmarks. In particular, the government of Iraq has met only one of 8 legislative benchmarks, which does not send the signal that the national government in Iraq is working hard at reconciliation.
Almost daily, there has been more and more positive news being reported on the progress being made in Iraq, and yet today we will be turning a blind eye, or at least it appears to me that way, to this progress, which is very concerning to me.
That progress is a highly subjective issue, and by definition, one would expect that there would be a better rating that would be achieved if one solely focused on progress. In my opinion, you need to look at both. You need to look at where do we stand as of a point in time and what progress is being made, and you need to consider the source. I think that's important. The bottom line is, based upon our independent and professional judgment, the Iraqi government, as of August 30, 2007, had met 3, partially met 4, and did not meet 11 of the 18 benchmarks. As the Congress considers the way forward in Iraq, in our view, it should balance the achievement of the 18 Iraqi benchmarks with military progress and homeland security, foreign policy, and other goals of the United States. Future administration reports on the benchmarks would be more useful to the Congress if they clearly depicted the status of each legislative benchmark, provided additional quantitative and qualitative information on violence from all relevant U.S. agencies, and specified the performance and loyalties of Iraqi security forces supporting coalition operations. It's not enough just to look at their readiness. You also have to look at their reliability. Both are important in order to ascertain their ability to effectively support the coalition.
What's the source of the confusion regarding the violence against civilians? What is really going on? What standards should we look at? Where do we go from here?
Well, first, there are several sources with regard to overall violence, and we have unclassified information that is included in our report, and we showed that on the board, whereas you can see that violence, overall violence increased up till June, it decreased in July, and we will see the August numbers here in the near future. That's aggregate violence statistics, and I think they speak for themselves, and we're comfortable with those numbers. Here's where the disagreement is, Mr. Chairman. To my knowledge, only MNFI, the multinational force Iraq, maintains data on sectarian violence. That is a subset of overall violence. And as one can understand at the outset, it's difficult with any degree of certainty and reliability to know which of the overall violence relates to sectarian factors and which don't. The MNFI believes that their data shows that sectarian violence has gone down. And in fact, we were made available of some of that data through August 15th. We asked for data beyond that. We weren't provided to them. We have not been able to get comfortable with the methodology that MNFI uses to determine sectarian violence. We are comfortable with the methodology that's used to determine overall violence. We think it's important that you consider both. The data that we're using is unclassified data that is in the report, and it is based upon a methodology that we're comfortable with, and it therefore provides a basis to get a sense for overall trends, from month to month and over time. Let me also be clear that the information with regard to sectarian violence is classified. We have some information in our classified report talking about certain issues there. Let me acknowledge that there has been a decline in what is being reported there without getting into specifics. But let me also reinforce that we're not comfortable with the methodology that's being used. I'm not saying that the numbers are right or wrong. I'm saying we're not comfortable with the methodology. I mean, we in our report say, look, here's what we did. We have clearly defined, consistently applied, transparent criteria for determining whether something is met, not met, or partially met. You don't see the same thing with regard to some of these other evaluations. And last, let me just reinforce that there is a significant difference of opinion between us and the military on this sectarian violence, and it's because we can't get comfortable with their methodology. All right? We're not saying they're wrong. We're saying we can't get comfortable that they're right.
There is obviously evidence that you can't get comfortable with them, and there's also evidence that they can't get comfortable with you. I'm reading here the first paragraph of today's Washington Post story headlined "Military Officers in Iraq Fault GAO Report." The first paragraph says, "A bleak portrait of the political and security situation in Iraq released yesterday by the Government Accountability Office sparked sharp protests from top military command in Baghdad, whose officials described it as flawed and factually incorrect."
Two things. One, it's not uncommon for those that are being held accountable to have a problem. Okay. Secondly, I think if you read the rest of the article, which hopefully you've had a chance to do or will, I think you'll find that the one area of significant disagreement is what we've already talked about. I mean, they weren't attacking the overall thing. They said they have a strong difference of opinion on sectarian violence. I respect that difference of opinion. I understand why they have that difference of opinion. I acknowledge that their data shows a decline without getting into details. I'm telling you that we couldn't get comfortable with their methodology. I'm not saying they're wrong. We couldn't get comfortable they're right.
In your assertion that you are the only independent and professional reporting service that we will hear from, I would beg to differ. I understand that the military is not independent, but they certainly are professional. And I think the same could be said about our intelligence services. So with that little amendment,
In Ms. Saxon, I agree they're professional, but they're not independent. All right? And just as in corporate America, the reason you have auditors is, do you want to just rely upon the people who are responsible for executing? They're totally professional, no question about that. Sure. And you definitely ought to consider their opinion, but they're not independent.
We agree.
Thank you.